Hi friends, my name is Nandita. I am from Andhra Pradesh.
Good morning dear students. Today we are going to discuss about locomotion and movement from chapter 20 biology class 11 CBSE syllabus. The human face is made up of 14 bones. First let us discuss about mandible. Mandible forms the strongest and largest facial bone. It compresses the body and two ramen. The U-shaped body has mental foramen situated on the outer surface near the root apex of the second and third premolars. The foramen's opening is led backwards, laterally transmitting the mental nerve and the vessels. On the outer line surface of the body of mandible, the symphysis constitute a halo rich in indicative of the line of fusing the two halves of the mandible at the same time of development. The medial surface of the body of the mandible compresses to the mental spines, which gives rise to the genioglossus muscles and geniohyoid muscles. The monohyoid lines are oblique edges running laterally and backwards from the site of the mental spines to the region behind and below the third molar tooth, representing the attachment of the monohyoid muscle. The submandibular fossa is seen below the posterior section of the mylohyoid line for the sublingual gland, and the sublingual fossa is seen above the anterior section of the mylohyoid line. A small neck is inferior to the head. Children, let us discuss about vomer. It is a pole-shaped bone situated in the middle line of the nasal fossa. It forms the posterior part of the nasal septum. Not only that, but it is also mediates with the maxillary, ethmoid and palatine bones. Let us discuss about inferior concave. This structure is a paired one forming the bony assistance of the inferior turbinate bilaterally. It is of surgical significance in the event when it blocks the inferior meatus and the nasolacrimal duct. Children, let us discuss about palatine bones. These irregular shaped paired bones, each compressing a main horizontal part and a vertical perpendicular plate. The horizontal plate anteriorly mediates with the maxilla and with that of a palatine bone of the opposite side in the midline, forming the posterior component of the hard plate. The vertical plate superiorly passes behind the maxilla and posteriorly mediates with the lateral pterygoid plate of the sphenoid bone. This vertical plate ends in a small offering to the orbital floor at the posterior medial factor. It has two foramen, the lesser and greater palatine that lies in the posterior section of the plate, passing the lesser and greater palatine nerves and the vessels. Children, let us discuss about nasal bones. These are rectangular bones forming the bridge of the nose, articulating the frontal bone superiorly and with one another at the midline. It is comparatively thick at the superior articulation. Inferiorly, it is fine. This is a fracture prone site. These bones posteriorly mediate with the frontal process of maxilla. The anterior nasal aperture is formed by the lower borders with the maxilla. These are two nasal cavities divided by nasal septum that is constituted by the vomer. The perpendicular plate of the ethmoid and the sepal cartilage, the middle and the superior concave are edges of bones projecting into the nasal cavity from the ethmoid on the both sides. Children, let us discuss about lacrimal bones. These are the most fragile and the smallest facial bones and are located at the front part of the medial wall of the orbit. It is a paired bone anteriorly articulating with the frontal process of the maxilla and articulate posteriorly with that of lamina papyraceae of the ethmoid. It articulates superiorly with the frontal bone and the inferiorly with that of a orbital plate of the maxilla. This is a groove referred to as the lacrimal groove for the nasolacrimal duct seen in the anterior section of the lateral surface of the lacrimal bone. The lacrimal grooves unites anteriorly with the posterior periphery of the frontal process of the maxilla for the formation of the fossa that harbors the lacrimal sac. Children, let us discuss about maxillae. The both maxilla constitute the upper jaw parts at the lateral walls of the nasal cavities and the anterior sections of the hard plate and sections of the floors of the orbital cavities. The two bones unite in the midline at the antimaxillary structure, forming the lower margin of the nasal apparatus. The infraorbital foramen penetrates the maxilla under the orbit. The alveolar process moves downwards and with the opposite side constitute the alveolar arch holding the upper teeth. Each of the hemimaxillas compresses the maxillary sinus, a big pyramid shaped body. Four evident processes: alveolar, frontal, palatine, and zygomatic processes. Maxillary's body is hollow, compressing the maxillary sinus. The anterior walls of the sinus are facial surface of the maxilla and typically are thin. The middle wall is the lateral nasal wall. The sinus leads to medially and superiorly to the nasal cavity at the middle meatus. The superior roof of the sinus is the orbital floor, the sinus floor is the palatine and the alveolar process of the maxillum. The maxilla posteriorly mediates with the lacrimal bone, forming the anterior part of the medial orbital wall. Children, let us discuss about zygomatic bones. It is a strong, thick and diamond-shaped bone forming the anterior and lateral projections to the midface and compresses four processes. The zygoma is a paired bones constituting the prominence of the cheek. The frontal process constitutes the lateral orbital wall and mediates with the frontal bone at the front zygomatic structure. The temporal process constitutes the zygomatic arch mediating with the temporal bone. The maxillary process mediates with the maxilla, forming the infraorbital rim and a section of the floor of the orbit. The fourth process unites with the maxilla on the lateral wall, generating the zygomatic distinction. The zygoma mediates with the sphenoid bone on the posterior component of the frontal process. The articulation is with the higher wing of the sphenoid bone constituting the lateral wall of the orbit. The zygomatic temporal and the zygomatic facial foramen are the only foramen of the zygomatic bone. Both these branches of the second division of the trigeminal nerve passes from inside the orbit to the face and provides sensory innervation to the structures associated.